Hello to all martial arts enthusiasts, and welcome to the channel. Before we dive into this absolutely extraordinary story, take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because what you're about to hear will completely change how you see some of the biggest legends in martial arts history. Today, I'm going to reveal a story that's been buried for over half a century. A story of power, loyalty, and betrayal between two titans whose friendship shaped the golden age of martial arts and whose rivalry nearly tore it apart. This isn't the Hollywood version. This is the truth, raw, untold, and more shocking than anything you've ever heard before. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at Bruce Lee or Bolo Yeung the same way again. But to understand what really happened between them, you have to go back to where it all began. Bruce Lee's story started in 1940 in San Francisco, though his roots grew deep in the bustling streets of Hong Kong. His father was a performer in Cantonese opera, and from him Bruce inherited both charisma and discipline. As a boy, he was fiery, restless, often getting into street fights. Those early battles weren't for glory, they were survival. Hong Kong was a rough place, and young Bruce learned quickly that skill meant safety. At 13, he began training under Ip Man, the legendary Wing Chun master. What started as self-defense soon became obsession. But even then, Bruce wasn't satisfied with simply following tradition. He questioned everything. Every stance, every strike, every rule. Why follow one style when you could master them all? That restless mind led him to blend philosophies, absorbing what worked and discarding what didn't. It was this rebellion that would one day become Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. Years later, Bruce moved to America with little more than a dream and a few dollars. He studied philosophy at the University of Washington, but his real passion was teaching martial arts. He opened his own schools and began sharing his methods with anyone willing to learn, not just Chinese students, which angered traditionalists back home. To Bruce, martial arts weren't about race or tradition. They were about expression, the honest expression of one's self through movement. His charisma caught Hollywood's eye, but his road there was filled with rejection. He pitched a show called Kung Fu, only to watch it handed to another actor. He faced racism, stereotyping, and countless doors slammed in his face. Yet he never stopped training, never stopped pushing. His body was his laboratory, his mind a weapon sharper than any blade. Meanwhile, across the sea in Guangzhou, a young man named Beyond the Lookout Yeung was carving his own path. Born in 1946, Bolo grew up in a world far removed from Hollywood. From a young age, he trained in traditional Chinese martial arts, styles rooted in form, strength, and control. But he had another passion, bodybuilding. In a time when few in China even knew what weightlifting was, Bolo sculpted himself into something extraordinary. His physique became a symbol of power, earning him the title of Mr. Hong Kong Bodybuilding Champion for 10 consecutive years. While Bruce sought speed, fluidity, and adaptability, Bolo embodied raw force. His punches were like hammers, his presence dominating. If Bruce was the dragon, fluid and untouchable, Bolo was the beast, unshakable and unstoppable. When these two forces met, they represented not just two men, but two philosophies. Speed versus strength, freedom versus structure, mind versus muscle. Their meeting came during the production of Enter the Dragon, the film that would change the world. It was 1973. Warner Brothers had finally given Bruce the global stage he'd been fighting for. It was the first major Hollywood-Hong Kong co-production, and it needed to be perfect. Bruce was the star, the creative force, and in many ways the director in spirit. Every scene, every movement, every fight bore his signature precision. Bolo Yeung was cast as one of Han's enforcers, a secondary villain, but a crucial presence. His imposing figure and fierce energy gave the film an intensity that no one else could bring. The original script even included a major fight between Bruce and Bolo, a duel that would pit the dragon against the beast. But as filming progressed, Warner Brothers decided to cut the scene. They wanted the final battle between Bruce and Han to stand alone, believing an earlier fight would dilute the climax. For most productions, that would have been the end of it. But on that set, surrounded by real martial artists, energy was building. Behind the camera, there was mutual respect and a hint of challenge. Bolo admired Bruce's speed, his precision, the almost supernatural control of his body. Bruce, in turn, respected Bolo's discipline, his sheer physical power. Yet there was an unspoken question lingering between them. Whose approach would prevail in a real fight? During breaks on set, the tension grew. Fighters like Jim Kelly, Bob Wall, and even a young Jackie Chan could feel it. They trained together, exchanged techniques, and occasionally tested one another. Bruce would demonstrate his famous one-inch punch, sending men twice his size staggering backward. Bolo would respond with feats of strength that left jaws dropping. What began as admiration slowly evolved into competition, not out of hostility but curiosity. Both men wanted to know the truth. Then one day, away from the cameras, it happened. Not a show fight, not choreography, a real test between the dragon and the beast. They squared off, surrounded by a few trusted cast members. There were no scripts, no cues, no applause, just two martial artists ready to measure their essence. Bruce moved first, lightning fast, testing the range, searching for openings. His movements were fluid, impossible to predict. He darted in, landed quick strikes, and flowed out before Bolo could react. Every movement was calculated, efficient, surgical. Bolo, grounded and powerful, absorbed the hits and pushed forward, trying to trap Bruce within his reach. His punches carried enormous force, the kind that could end a fight with one solid connection. But Bruce was elusive, his body responding like water around rock. Time and again, Bolo swung and missed, while Bruce's strikes found their mark: chest, ribs, shoulder. Not enough to injure, but enough to remind him who dictated the rhythm. Minutes turned into 10. Bolo's breathing grew heavier, his muscles beginning to slow under their own weight. Bruce, still sharp, maintained his tempo, controlling distance, dictating pace. It wasn't arrogance, it was mastery. He wasn't fighting beyond the lookout the man. He was fighting the idea of brute strength itself. And he was proving that intelligence, adaptability, and endurance could outlast power. Finally, exhausted, Bolo yielded. There was no shame, no anger. He bowed his head, acknowledging the dragon's superiority. Bruce smiled, extended his hand, and helped him up. Those who witnessed it said the respect between them deepened that day. There were no egos, no grudges, only understanding. The story could have ended there, just another behind-the-scenes anecdote. But that moment captured something deeper, the living proof of Bruce Lee's philosophy. "Be water, my friend," he once said. And that day he was. Yet, just weeks later, tragedy struck. Bruce Lee, at the height of his power, was gone. The world was stunned. His death, sudden and mysterious, left a hole that has never been filled. For Bolo Yeung, it was more than the loss of a co-star. It was the loss of a brother in spirit. He would later say that no one he ever met carried the same energy, the same fire, the same light as Bruce Lee. That brief fight, he claimed, taught him more about martial arts than years of training. In the years that followed, Bolo continued his career, often playing villains in action films, most notably alongside Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport. But no matter how many roles he played, he never forgot the man who changed his understanding of combat. Bruce Lee was not just fast, Beyond the Lookout once said. He was beyond speed. He was pure instinct. Their clash was never meant for cameras, yet it remains one of the most fascinating hidden chapters in martial arts history. Not because of who won or lost, but because of what it revealed, that true mastery isn't about domination, but understanding. Bruce Lee didn't fight to prove superiority. He fought to express truth. And perhaps that's why his legacy endures. His body may have been mortal, but his philosophy transcended him. His words, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own, continue to guide martial artists, athletes, and thinkers around the world. The dragon and the beast, two men from opposite worlds, united by discipline and passion. One embodied speed, the other strength. One sought freedom through movement, the other through power. But in the end, they shared the same purpose: to test their limits, to grow, to discover what lies beyond the edge of physical capability. Imagine standing there on that Hong Kong set, the humid air thick with anticipation, the clinking of training gear echoing across the courtyard. You see Bruce Lee, lean and focused, eyes locked like a hawk. You see Bolo Yeung, a mountain of muscle, calm but burning inside. The world never saw that fight, but those who did say it was something they'd never forget. Not because of violence, there was none of that, but because it was pure truth, stripped of everything but movement and spirit. It's said that after the fight, Bruce placed his hand on Bolo's shoulder and said, "You're strong, but strength without timing is like a blade without edge." Bolo nodded, and for a brief moment, teacher and student, rivals and brothers became one. That was Bruce Lee's gift, to inspire, to challenge, to awaken. Decades have passed, yet their energy lingers. When you watch Enter the Dragon today, you can almost feel it, that unspoken connection between two men who knew that greatness isn't given, it's earned in sweat, pain, and understanding. So what remains of that hidden duel? No footage, no proof, only memory and legend. But maybe that's how it should be. Some stories are too pure to be filmed. They live best as whispers carried through time, retold by those who still feel the fire of what Bruce Lee stood for. He was not just an actor, not just a fighter. He was a force of nature, a man who taught the world that the human body and mind could become limitless when they moved as one. And Bolo Yeung, in his own way, became the living echo of that lesson, the student who once faced the master and walked away transformed. Because in the end, that's what Enter the Dragon was truly about. Not crime or vengeance, but self-discovery. Not winning, but awakening. And maybe that's why their story still fascinates us. Because deep down, we all want to know, what happens when the dragon meets the beast? The answer lies not in who won the fight, but in what both men learned from it. Bruce Lee showed the world that the greatest opponent you'll ever face is yourself. Bolo Yeung learned that true power isn't in muscle, but in mastery. Together, they proved that legends are not born. They are forged in silence, in sweat, and in truth. So next time you watch that final mirror room battle in Enter the Dragon, look closer. Somewhere behind those reflections, between the flashes of fists and shards of glass, the ghost of that unseen fight still lives. A reminder of the dragon who became eternal, and the beast who stood before him and bowed in respect. Because in the end, Bruce Lee was not just a man. He was the moment when philosophy became movement. And that perhaps is the greatest fight story never told.